The other day in an elevator, a young woman stepped in with red, swollen eyes. She was trying so hard to hold back her sobs, her shoulders trembling slightly. 3 other people in that small metal box were standing around her, all staring intently at their phones. Nobody asked if she was okay. Nobody even looked up. The doors closed, we rode in silence, and when she got off on the 4th floor, it was as if she had never been there at all. That moment hit me harder than I expected. It made me realize something I had been feeling but could not quite put into words. This world is getting colder. Have you noticed it too? Everywhere you look, there are smiles, but the eyes behind them are empty. People are polite, sure, but there is a distance that was not there before. We exchange pleasantries, we follow the social scripts, but something essential is missing. If you have been feeling like human connection is fading, like people are becoming more distant and less warm, you are not imagining it. It is happening, and it is happening fast. Walk down any street in any city and you will see it. People passing each other without making eye contact. Everyone is in their own bubble, their own world, protected by invisible walls. Go to a coffee shop and watch people sitting across from each other, both scrolling through their phones, barely speaking. Visit a family gathering and notice how quickly the conversation dies out, how eager everyone is to retreat back into their devices. This is not just about technology, though. That plays a huge role. This is about something deeper, something that is fundamentally changing how we relate to each other as human beings. The signs are everywhere once you start looking. People avoid eye contact on public transportation. Text messages get shorter and shorter, often just 1 or 2 words. When someone asks how you are doing, they do not really want to know, and you do not really tell them. Conversations stay on the surface, never diving into anything real or meaningful. We know more people than ever before through social media, yet we feel more alone. We have hundreds of friends online, but nobody to call when we are falling apart at 3 in the morning. We are surrounded by others, yet isolated in our own private suffering. Think about your own relationships for a moment. How many people do you actually talk to, really talk to, about what matters? How many people know what keeps you up at night, what your real dreams are, what scares you? For most of us, that number is shrinking. We have acquaintances, colleagues, people we are friendly with, but few genuine connections. We recognize faces but do not know stories. We exchange information but not emotions. We coexist but do not truly connect. So what is causing this? Why are we becoming colder? The answer is not simple, and it is not just one thing. It is a combination of factors that are all working together to freeze the human heart. Let me walk you through them, because understanding why this is happening is the first step toward doing something about it. The first reason is something psychologists call emotional bandwidth overload. Think of your emotional capacity like a battery. Every interaction, every demand on your attention, every stress and pressure drains that battery a little bit. When the battery runs low, you do not have energy left for others, no matter how much you might care about them. I had a friend, let me call him David, who used to be one of the warmest people I knew. He would call just to check in, remember small details about your life, always had time for a long conversation. Then he started a demanding job at a consulting firm. 80-hour weeks became normal. The pressure was relentless. Within 2 years, David changed. He stopped calling. When you texted him, he would reply days later with something like, "Sorry, crazy week," or "Let me get back to you." Not because he stopped caring, but because he was running on empty. He had just enough energy to survive his own life, nothing left over for anyone else. This is what is happening to millions of people. We are living in an age of unprecedented pressure. Work demands are higher than ever. Many people are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Even when we are not working, we are expected to be available, to respond to emails at night, to be productive during what used to be personal time. Add to that financial stress, health concerns, family obligations, and the constant bombardment of information from every direction. Our brains were simply not designed to handle this level of input and stress. When your emotional bandwidth is maxed out, your brain does something to protect you. It shuts down the parts that process empathy and connection. Not permanently, but temporarily, as a survival mechanism. You become less responsive to the emotions of others because you cannot afford to take on more emotional weight. You withdraw not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. This is why David was not being a bad friend. He was drowning and could barely keep his own head above water. Asking him to support someone else emotionally was like asking someone hanging from a cliff by their fingertips to reach out and pull someone else up. The capacity simply was not there. The tragedy is that when everyone is operating at maximum capacity, we create a society of people who are all emotionally unavailable to each other at the same time. We all need support, but nobody has anything left to give. It is like a village where everyone is starving, but nobody has food to share. The need is universal, but the resources are depleted. So we end up isolated in our struggles, each person fighting their own battles alone, unable to reach out or respond to others, because we are barely surviving ourselves. The second reason people are becoming colder is what I call the self-protection culture that develops after repeated emotional wounds. When you have been hurt enough times, your psyche learns to defend itself by shutting down. It is not a conscious choice. It is an automatic response, like flinching when something comes toward your face. A young woman I know, Sarah, told me her story over coffee one afternoon. She said when she was in her early 20s, she loved with her whole heart. She trusted easily, opened up quickly, believed the best in people. Then she had her heart broken, not just once, but several times. A boyfriend who cheated, a best friend who betrayed her confidence, a mentor who took advantage of her trust. Each wound taught her a lesson, and eventually those lessons added up to a new philosophy. Do not get too close. Do not trust too much. Keep your guard up. Now, in her 30s, Sarah describes herself as friendly but distant. She has many acquaintances but no close friends. She dates but keeps men at arm's length. When I asked if she was lonely, her eyes filled with tears. Of course she was. But she was more afraid of being hurt again than she was of being alone. Sarah's story is not unique. It is the story of a generation that has learned that vulnerability is dangerous. We live in a world where opening your heart can get you crushed, where trusting someone can leave you betrayed, where caring deeply can lead to devastating loss. So people build walls. Those walls might look like coldness, like indifference, like emotional unavailability. But underneath, they are fear. They are scar tissue. They are the armor worn by people who have been wounded too many times. What makes this particularly tragic is that coldness becomes self-perpetuating. When hurt people shut down emotionally, they hurt others through their unavailability, creating more hurt people who also shut down. It spreads like a virus. Each person who chooses self-protection over connection makes the world a little colder, which makes the next person a little more likely to also choose self-protection. Before long, emotional distance becomes the norm, and warmth becomes the exception. The third major factor is technology, and this one deserves special attention because of how profoundly it has reshaped human interaction. A friend described a scene to me that perfectly captures what is happening. He went to dinner with his family, parents, and 2 teenage siblings at a nice restaurant. The food arrived, and all 4 of them pulled out their phones. For the entire meal, nobody spoke. They were all engaged, just not with each other. His dad was checking work emails. His mum was scrolling through social media. His sister was texting friends. His brother was watching videos. The only time they had an actual conversation that evening was when the Wi-Fi went down and they all looked up, annoyed, suddenly aware of each other's presence. This is not just about phones, though they are a big part of it. It is about what technology has done to how we relate. We have replaced face-to-face interaction with digital communication, and in doing so, we have lost something essential. When you talk to someone in person, you see their facial expressions, hear the tone of their voice, pick up on subtle cues about how they are really feeling. You have to be present, engaged, attentive. Digital communication strips all of that away. A text message is just words on a screen. An emoji is a pale shadow of a real emotion. A like or reaction costs nothing, requires no real engagement, and creates the illusion of connection without any of the substance. We have become conditioned to interact in these shallow ways. Young people growing up now have spent their entire lives communicating primarily through screens. Many of them struggle with basic face-to-face social skills because they have simply had less practice. They are more comfortable typing than talking, more at ease with online personas than real vulnerability. The result is a generation that is hyper-connected digitally but emotionally isolated in physical space. Technology has also accelerated everything. We expect instant responses. If someone does not text back within an hour, we assume they are ignoring us. We scroll through hundreds of posts, stories, and updates in minutes, our attention skipping from one thing to the next without ever truly engaging with anything. This constant state of distraction and overstimulation makes it nearly impossible to develop the patience and presence that real human connection requires. Deep relationships take time, attention, and sustained effort. But we have trained ourselves for quick hits, instant gratification, constant novelty. Is it any wonder we struggle to maintain meaningful bonds? The fourth reason is the culture of comparison and competition that has taken over our lives, particularly through social media. Every app, every platform has turned human existence into a contest. Who has more followers? Who is getting more likes? Who is living their best life? Who is more successful, more attractive, more interesting, more everything? We are constantly measuring ourselves against others and finding ourselves lacking. This comparison culture does something insidious to the human heart. It replaces compassion with envy. Instead of being genuinely happy for others, we feel threatened by their success. Instead of celebrating someone's joy, we feel diminished by it. Every picture of someone's vacation, every announcement of a promotion, every glimpse into what appears to be a perfect life makes us feel worse about our own. And when we feel bad about ourselves, we do not have the emotional generosity to be warm toward others. The competition aspect makes it even worse. We have stopped seeing other people as fellow human beings on this difficult journey through life. Instead, we see them as rivals, as threats, as people who might take what we want. In the workplace, we compete for jobs, promotions, recognition. In social circles, we compete for attention, validation, status. Even in our personal lives, we compare relationships, parenting styles, bodies, achievements. When everyone is a potential competitor, it becomes hard to let your guard down. Kindness starts to feel like weakness. Vulnerability feels like handing ammunition to someone who might use it against you. So we stay closed off, wary, defended. This competitive mindset also breeds suspicion. When someone is nice to you, you wonder what they want. When someone offers help, you question their motives. Because in a world where everyone is out for themselves, genuine generosity seems implausible. We have become so accustomed to transactional relationships where every interaction has an angle that we have forgotten what it feels like to simply care about someone without expecting anything in return. The result is that we do not trust each other, and without trust there can be no warmth. The fifth factor is a loss of meaning and purpose that seems to characterize modern life. Many people feel like they are just going through the motions, checking boxes, surviving rather than thriving. They work jobs that do not fulfill them to pay for lifestyles that do not satisfy them. They chase goals that society told them mattered only to feel empty when they achieve them. They are busy, always busy, but busy doing what? and for what purpose. When your own life feels meaningless, it becomes nearly impossible to show up emotionally for others. You are already running on empty spiritually. Your own soul feels hollow. How can you offer warmth and light to someone else when you have none for yourself? This existential coldness, this inner emptiness, manifests as emotional distance in relationships. People who are disconnected from their own sense of purpose and meaning become disconnected from others as well. Part of this is because meaning and connection are deeply intertwined. We find purpose through relationships, through contributing to something larger than ourselves, through feeling like we matter to other people. But when we are too busy, too stressed, too focused on just surviving, we do not have time for the things that create meaning. We sacrifice relationships for work. We sacrifice community for individual achievement. We sacrifice presence for productivity. And in doing so, we end up with lives that are successful on paper, but empty in reality. The sixth and final major reason is that kindness has become dangerous. This might sound cynical, but it is true. In a world that has become increasingly selfish and transactional, being genuinely kind and open makes you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. Good people get burned. Generous people get exploited. Those who give freely often find that others just take and take without reciprocating. Over time, even the warmest hearts learn to close themselves off as an act of self-preservation. I cannot tell you how many stories I have heard that follow the same pattern. Someone extends themselves for a friend, offering time, money, emotional support, only to have that friend disappear when the situation reverses. Someone trusts a colleague with sensitive information, only to have it used against them. Someone opens their heart in a romantic relationship, only to have their vulnerability weaponized during an argument. Each of these experiences teaches the same brutal lesson. Caring too much is a liability. Being too kind makes you a target. Showing too much heart leaves you exposed. The tragic irony is that this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The people who would naturally be the warmest, most caring members of society are the ones who get hurt most by its coldness. And once they have been hurt enough times, they too retreat behind walls of self-protection. The world loses exactly the people it needs most to counteract the growing coldness. Kindness becomes scarce precisely because it is so desperately needed, which makes it even more rare, which makes the world even colder. So what happens when all of these factors combine? What does a society look like when emotional coldness becomes the norm rather than the exception? The consequences are more severe than most people realize. There is a phenomenon in Japan called kodokushi, which translates to dying alone. It refers to people who die in their apartments and are not discovered for weeks, sometimes months, or even years. These are not homeless people or those completely disconnected from society. They are ordinary individuals who went to work, paid their bills, lived normal lives on the surface. But they had become so isolated, so disconnected from meaningful human relationships that nobody noticed when they disappeared. Their mail piled up, their rent got auto-paid from their bank accounts. Their absence created no ripple in the world around them. Think about how profoundly lonely you would have to be for your death to go unnoticed for months. This might seem like an extreme example, something that only happens in other countries with different social structures. But the underlying isolation, the fundamental disconnection, is happening everywhere. We are surrounded by people yet utterly alone. We live in apartment buildings where we do not know our neighbors' names. We work alongside people for years without knowing anything real about their lives. We have hundreds of social media connections, but nobody who would actually notice if we stopped posting. This loneliness in the midst of crowds is one of the defining features of modern life. You can feel completely isolated on a packed subway train. You can feel desperately alone at a party full of people. You can feel unseen and unknown even when surrounded by family and friends, because physical proximity is not the same as emotional connection. Being around others is not the same as being truly with them, and in a world where everyone is locked inside their own private experience, we can be shoulder to shoulder with other humans and still be completely, utterly alone. The relationships we do have become increasingly shallow and fragile. We know people casually but not deeply. We are connected widely but not strongly. Like spiderwebs made of gossamer thread, these relationships cannot bear any real weight. When crisis comes, when we really need support, we discover that all our connections are too thin, too weak, too superficial to hold us. We thought we had a network, but it turns out we just had a list of names and faces who do not actually know us at all. Society becomes colder in ways both large and small. People step over someone having a medical emergency rather than stop to help. Neighbors hear screaming through the walls but do not check if everything is okay because they do not want to get involved. Someone is being harassed on public transportation and everyone looks away because it is not their problem. We have all become experts at minding our own business, at staying in our lane, at not making waves. And yes, sometimes this is necessary for self-protection. But when everyone is protecting themselves, who is left to care for others? We create systems and structures that reflect this coldness. Bureaucracies where you are a number, not a person. Healthcare where you are a patient ID, not a human being in distress. Education where you are a test score, not a child with unique needs and potential. Even in institutions that are supposed to care for people, the humanity gets squeezed out by efficiency, protocol, and bottom-line thinking. We build a world optimized for everything except the one thing that matters most, genuine human connection. But here is what I want you to understand. This is not inevitable. We are not doomed to become colder and colder until we are all frozen strangers passing in the night. These trends can be reversed. This drift toward isolation can be stopped. But it requires conscious effort. It requires going against the grain of modern culture. It requires choosing warmth in a world that incentivizes coldness. So what can we actually do? How do we keep our hearts warm in a freezing world? I want to share 6 practices that might seem small, but are actually revolutionary acts of resistance against the growing coldness. First, make eye contact and actually look at people when you interact with them. This seems almost ridiculously simple, but pay attention to how rarely it happens. Most conversations now occur with at least one person looking at a phone. We talk while walking, while doing other things, while distracted. We do not actually look at each other anymore. But eye contact is where human connection begins. It is how we signal to another person that we see them, that they are worth our full attention, that they matter. Next time you talk to someone, put your phone away. Turn your body toward them. Look into their eyes. You will be amazed at how different the conversation feels. Second, respond with real emotion instead of just emojis and reactions. Digital communication is not going away, so we need to make it more human. Instead of reacting with a thumbs up or a heart icon, take the time to write actual words. Tell someone specifically what their message meant to you. Ask follow-up questions. Share something real about your own life. Turn the sterile efficiency of digital communication into something that carries actual emotional weight and substance. Third, invest real time and attention into 1 or 2 people every single day. You cannot deeply connect with everyone, and trying to spread yourself thin across dozens of shallow relationships is part of what got us into this mess. Instead, focus. Pick the people who matter most to you and give them your real presence. Call your parent not just to check a box, but to actually hear about their day. Sit with your partner without distractions and talk about something meaningful. Take your friend out for coffee and ask them how they are really doing, then listen to the actual answer. Quality over quantity in relationships is not just a nice idea, it is essential. Fourth, ruthlessly reduce your consumption of negative and comparative content. Unfollow accounts that make you feel bad about yourself. Stop doom scrolling through news and outrage. Limit your time on platforms designed to make you compare and compete. Your emotional bandwidth is precious and limited. Stop wasting it on things that drain you without adding any real value to your life. Protect your inner world like it is the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Fifth, create regular space for stillness and silence. Meditate, take walks without headphones, sit in nature, journal, pray, whatever works for you. But build in time where you are not consuming, not producing, not doing anything except being present with yourself. This is how you recharge your emotional battery. This is how you reconnect with your own humanity so you have something to offer others. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and constant busyness empties your cup. Stillness refills it. Sixth, choose depth over breadth in your relationships. It is better to have 3 friends who really know you than 300 acquaintances who only know your surface. Invest in relationships that go beyond the superficial. Be vulnerable. Share your struggles, not just your highlights. Ask about what people are afraid of, what they dream about, what keeps them up at night. Have conversations that matter. Build bonds that can bear weight. These deep connections are what will sustain you when life gets hard, and they are what will keep your heart warm when the world feels cold. Let me close with something personal, because I think it matters. A few years ago, I realized I had become one of the cold people. A good friend reached out to me during a difficult time, and I responded with a quick text that was polite but distant. No real empathy, no real engagement. It was not that I did not care. I was just exhausted, overwhelmed, running on empty. But later that week, I thought about what I had done, and I felt ashamed. My friend needed me, and I had not shown up. Not because I was a bad person, but because I was so depleted that I had nothing left to give. That moment taught me something crucial. The people who seem cold are not usually cruel. They are tired. They are hurt. They are protecting themselves. They are running on fumes. Understanding this changed how I see the coldness in others. It also changed how I respond to my own capacity. I realized I needed to protect and nurture my own emotional well-being so that I would have something to offer when people I cared about needed me. I could not keep operating at maximum depletion and expect to show up warmly for others. We are living through a time when coldness is easy and warmth requires effort, when disconnection is the default and connection takes intention, when it is simpler to scroll past someone's pain than to engage with it. When protecting yourself seems smarter than opening your heart. I understand all of that. I feel the pull toward coldness too. We all do. But here is what I believe. This world desperately needs people who still have warm hearts, who still choose kindness even when it is risky, who still invest in real relationships even when it is hard, who still look other humans in the eye and see them, really see them. If you are reading this and you still have that warmth inside you, do not let it go cold. Do not let the world freeze your heart. Because people like you, people who still feel deeply and care genuinely and connect authentically, you are what will save us. You are what will pull us back from the edge of complete isolation. You are the ones who can reverse this tide. We are not becoming colder because we want to. We are becoming colder because we are exhausted, wounded, overwhelmed, and scared. But it does not have to stay this way. Every act of genuine connection is an act of rebellion. Every moment of real warmth pushes back against the freeze. Every time you choose to stay open when it would be easier to close off, you are helping to thaw the world. So if you still care, keep caring. If you still feel, keep feeling. If you still have the energy to show up warmly for others, keep showing up. This world needs your warm heart more than you know. Do not let it go cold.